Hey guys, it's Ted Bogert. We are back with the Ted Show. I owe this gentleman a big apology. I had to reschedule on him. I'm very excited to have Joe Ferrer
Yes.
on the show today.
Got it.
GlobalMailboxMoney.com. We're going to talk about his foundation. We're going to talk about business. We're going to talk about Give Forward together. We have lots and lots to talk about today. Welcome, Joe.
Let's do it. Let's do it. I'm excited to be here.
I'm very excited to have you again. Thank you for being patient. That was some crazy times. I don't even remember what I had to reschedule for, but I'm sure it was something insane.
Yeah.
Thank you for being patient. All right. So, we talked about before we went live, people love origin story. They want to know about Joe. They want to kind of know your journey to get here. So tell us a little bit about you, my friend.
I'll just tell you a little bit about myself. So I was born in New York, but grew
What
up
part?
in Brooklyn. Okay, Canarsie area. So grew up in the Central Florida area. I'm a football player, so I went on to play college football at Notre Dame. So hey, is that a good smile or a bad?
Love it, man. I love it. What did you play?
I played outside linebacker, and I was 96 through 2000 under Lou Holtz recruited me, and then
you're older than you look.
Hey, I appreciate that. Thank you.
96. I don't want to do the math, but that is definitely a time frame I did not think. What high school did you go to?
Lake Howell.
I went to Colonial. I mean,
okay. We played against you guys.
Yeah, we probably lost.
Yeah. What's that? The Grenadiers? Okay. Grenadiers, Colonial?
Grenadiers, good memory, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
You went to Notre Dame, and then what did you want to do? Did you just want to play? Did you want to play football professionally, or did you have other?
Yeah, and I think everyone that goes to your major schools, they think that they're going to be in the NFL, and that's just what it's going to be. And I thought the same. I did play in the CFL in Canada with the BC Lions for a couple years, and then I got released. Coach came in there and called my name, and it wasn't for a good reason, And I was like, man, I was starting. I thought everything was good, but in Canada, you can only have a certain amount of Americans to Canadians on the team. So sometimes it's not even a matter of are you the best at your position. It's a matter of how many Americans do we have? Do we have a good backup? It was a number.
It was your time to move on, whether you wanted to or not.
It was my time to move on. So then,
what did you do? How did you shift and pivot? I think that's such a critical place in so many people's lives. You grow up, you've done the one thing, and you've had this one goal, and you've practiced, and the amount of time and effort you put in, and all of a sudden it's like that's not where we're going in life. So how did you pivot?
So what happens is I had a buddy of mine. I was in the airport in Seattle, and I called a buddy of mine and told him that I've gotten released. And he's like, man, and he wasn't playing at the time. And he says, you know what, you should come into the financial services industry. He says, I'm doing that, and it's pretty well. And he says, you get paid for what you do. If you do it, and I was like, man, no politics. You mean if I'm actually better that I'm gonna get? And I was like, I'm like, I'll bet on myself. I'm like, I'm all for that, because I just kind of experienced that whole situation in Canada. I was like, so you mean if I go out there and I want to hump it 24 hours in the day, I'm going to get compensated for that? And he was like, absolutely. So I kind of went in to the financial services industry, and that's what, 21 years I've been with the same company doing the same thing.
You have. All right. So talk to us about that. Tell us what company you're with, and then was it what you expected? When somebody says financial services, there's so many things that could come to mind. So
correct.
What company you're with, and what was that transition like for you?
So I'm with Mutual of Omaha and Mutual of Omaha Investment Services on the advisory side. So when I started out in the industry, I started out on the kind of the insurance side, and that was kind of where I started. And then I realized that there's levels to financial services. And then I basically got my securities and I became an advisor. And then, you just keep on going up the ladder in terms of the types of clientele that you work with and what you're able to provide. So, and what happened was, I was pretty average initially, right? And what happened was I said, if I put the same effort and the same approach that I did into football, into this career, I can take it to the next level. And I basically did that. And now I'm in the top 5% of all advisors worldwide, because I utilized the same principles that I used in sports to kind of get me where I was. And I use that in business. And,
So tell us about those principles, because I think a lot of people would like to use their talents, their gifts, the things that worked for them in some other arena, and then apply it to what they're doing now. But sometimes that transition gets lost. So what are some of those principles you're talking about?
I'll give you a couple. So the first book that I wrote, right? Because everyone says, well, Joe, tell me how you're doing it, right? How did you do this? So what does everybody do? Everybody writes a book, right? So I wrote a book, right? And the first book that I wrote is called Mailbox Money. Okay. So the book is a fictional story that I wrote, but real life principles, but a fictional story of a salesperson who is down on their luck and struggling, knocked on the door of the most successful person that he knows in the office, and a woman opened the door. The woman said, well, how can I help you? And he says, you got it all going on. How can I be just like you? I want your lifestyle. You got the cars, the clients, you got it all. She said, every one of you young salesmen always wants to know what my secret is. And he says, I promise, just tell me. And she said, if you show up at this office at 7:30 a.m. for the next 2 months, she said, I'll tell you the secret. So he's like, well, I got kind of go to CrossFit in the morning with some buddies of mine. Can I come in? Right? Yeah. She said, absolutely. He said, can I come in at 10? She said, absolutely not. Right? So he promised to come in. So to make a long story short, he comes in and he says, okay, great. Now you have to tell me what the secret to your success is. And she says, I knew I liked you. And she says, have you ever heard of the legend of the golden mailbox and mailbox money? And he's like, what are you talking about? Tell me your secret to success. And she says, well, rather than me tell you about it, she says, I'm going to take you there. I'm going to take you on a journey. And there's 4 stops that we have to make. There's 4 disciplines that we have to learn along the way on this journey. She said, meet me at the airport at 7:30 a.m. So that's the first book. That's your trailer, Ted.
Nice.
There you go. So it's this journey of this salesperson learning these disciplines. And I kind of crafted it into this story. And it's something that can apply to many different industries that you can just apply to life. And
what's the discipline look like? Is it you get up every morning and eat your Wheaties? Do you get up every morning and you're in gratitude or meditation? What are some of the principles that you're talking about? Because I think people are hungry for them. They want to do better. I feel like we've all had a pivot year for 2020.
Sure.
And so now 2021, they're like, all right, we think that part's behind us, hopefully. What am I going to do different? What am I going to do and take into 2021 that's going to make me successful?
Right. So I'll give you a couple of disciplines. So the first discipline is going to be to stay close to the process. Right. And a lot of times people they drift away from the process of whatever industry or whatever it is that you're doing. And as you drift away from that process, you begin to lose the ability to understand what's going on. So I use an example of banking, right? When people used to have to cash their check and go to a bank and get that money, they valued it so much more because, man, I had to cash this. I went there. I had to, but now it's just like money pops up. You go, you swipe, and you've lost kind of touch with your money. And sometimes, even just from a monetary standpoint, you can see how not being connected to that process, you can probably take some things for granted.
So true.
So that's one of them. And secondly is visualization. And that's kind of an old school discipline that's practiced by so many, but it's just, sitting back and thinking about what that ideal image of your life is and of your business is, and really being able to see it clearly is a part of Mailbox Money.
So let me ask you, because honestly, you visualization, I'm a big believer in.
Yes.
But I think a lot of us struggle with how to do it. Like I would like very much there's things that I believe that I want, right? But to actually practice visualization it's a pretty big thing that you really need to focus, I guess, is the thought process. So
You do. You need.
what do you do? What do you teach, or what do you think people should do? There's storyboards, there's whiteboards, there's kumbaya meetings, there's all sorts of things when it comes to visualization. What does Joe do?
You need early in the morning is best. I just think that when you wake up, your brain is just fresh. Get somewhere really quiet. It could even be outside on a patio, but you want to be you don't want any distractions, and you really just want to set a timer, okay? And maybe try 2.5 minutes to start out with. There's some people that meditate for hours. I'm not that guy, right?
God bless them.
Yeah, exactly, right. But set a clock for about 2.5 minutes. And just try to be in complete silence, and then just try to think about what it is that you want and what does that look like. And just think of and picture and imagine yourself already in that situation. And I think as you do that over and over, that vision will start to become clearer and clearer, and you'll begin to start thinking about different things in that. So that's a good starting point, is 2.5 minutes, quiet place, no noise, and just try to focus on whatever it is that you're looking like, what does the end result look like? You always have to start with the end in mind.
Did you tweak it as you went? I think, let's say you had this, you started out, you have something you're visualizing that you want for your life, a goal, a success, a tangible. Now you reach it. Now what? Do you adjust on a daily basis? Do you adjust your vision? Do you revisit your vision? Because I think a lot of people go, I want to be rich. And then that's their vision.
That's too vague. That's too vague.
Agreed.
Yeah. What does a rich life look like?
Yes.
And that's what you have to begin to think about. Well, what does that rich life look like? Is it about material things? Is it about being able to give away things? So you have to really do that. Lou Holtz, what he did before we played games is we would lay on the old AstroTurf, and he would literally take us through a game scenario, and we would have to imagine ourselves making that big play, making that tackle.
Nice.
And before it happens, you got to see it. No one gets surprised by success. They've seen it. They put the work in. No one just wakes up and says, "Man, you know what? I ended up being a millionaire today. What a day." How'd
that happen?
Yeah, how did that happen? Right. So people are thinking about this process. And that's kind of what I teach through Mailbox Money, the first book. And then the follow-up to that, Ted, is most people talk about how do you make money, but the follow-up is, well, what happens when you make it? What is the next thing? And the follow-up is more about giving and finding your purpose in life. So now the salesman has made money, and now it's like, well, now what? And that is where I think a lot of books don't spend too much time on. Is it's all about how do you make $1 million, but it's never about, well, when you get it, well, what do you do? What are the new challenges that I'm going to have? So that's kind of where
true, because I think people, there's an old adage or a meme or whatever, a quote, where why would you expect to get the blessings you ask for when you're not even utilizing the blessings you have?
Right.
And I'm paraphrasing. So what you are talking about is, okay, so you got all this. Let's say you got your $1 million because you manifested it.
You got it.
What the hell are you going to do with it now?
Now what? And that's
the problem. People don't have that thought process because they're so focused on this ideal, and then there's really no visualization on what happens afterward.
Correct. And even in my profession of financial advising, I always tell clients, it's not that you have to retire from something. You have to retire to something. Okay. Because a lot of times when you retire from something, you're just like, hey, I just want to retire. I just want to just retire. And then when they retire, they're like, well, what the heck do I do all day long?
Correct.
And they end up really struggling with mental issues and things because their vision of what retirement was is not what it actually is.
Yes.
So when you have a vision of saying, look, you know what, I want to retire and I want to coach youth sports and I'm going to be able to dive into that in retirement and I can't wait to do that more, that person stands more of a success because they're retiring to something. not just from something. So it's
I love that you are retiring to, not from. That's so
exactly
important because again, that goes back to how you're setting up that success. So you've worked your
correct.
whole life, you've invested properly, you've got a fantastic financial advisor like
Hey,
Joe, and now
absolutely.
you can actually retire to
Two,
what it is that you had in your mind, but
all those years.
you have to figure that out what that two is.
Correct.
And
Correct.
that's where I think it's so important to have that visualization and to
100%.
really kind of knock it out of the park. Where did this come from for you? Were you raised in a family where you were like this, or have you just had to develop these gifts and these insights over time?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a man of faith, so I believe that everything in
Me
my
too, my
life,
friend.
absolutely, I believe everything in my life is spirit led. So these are the things that helped me to go from average to being, one of the top. And I've just laid it out in a very simple way where the first four disciplines are in that book. And then even in my own journey, it's like, okay, when I did reach the level of where people say, man, you've hit the level, now what? And that's kind of where the whole Mailbox Money Community Foundation and the giving and all the things that I'm doing now is kind of where my passion and focus is, because it's the journey, it's to make it. And now what do you do? And that's where you see the Bill Gates and the Buffetts, those guys, they want to give it all away because they figure it out. That's where the magic is at.
That's where the magic is. And you
That's
have to
what-
get there. You have to, but that's why the visualization is so important. So is everybody going to be a Bill Gates? No, but you can make your own path and then be able to give back whatever your passion is.
Yes.
But you have to work on it. Like it's a work in progress. It's a vision in progress almost. I mean, I think if I did a vision board in my 20s versus in my I'm in my early 30s. No, I'm much older. So if you compared the vision boards during those times, they'd be completely different.
Yeah.
And so you have to learn how to tweak. You'll have to learn how to pivot. And I think a lot of people, of course, were forced to do that in 2020. What was it like for you, 2020, to be in the financial world and to have your books and to do what you're doing, and then the whole world is shut down? How did you shift?
Yeah, it was different. I had a really good year, in professionally. I worked with less clients, but I worked with them on a higher level. And traditionally in business, if you can work with less people, it's going to be beneficial, where you're not doing as much work. So from that standpoint, I worked with less people, higher volumes, and half the year I was launching, the Mailbox Money, Community Foundation. And so I was just all over the place, and I just seemed to have a good year. And I just know that, I'm just thankful to God to be able to have a great year, launch this all at the same time, and not get COVID in the process. Knock on wood, right?
On wood.
Knock on wood, and we're safe. And, I pray that we continue to be safe. But a lot of people out there struggling,
They are struggling. So, all right. I want people to know how to reach you. I want people to know how to get your books. I want people we have a lot of people who are looking for that financial direction.
Right.
And 2020 kind of brought them to the place where they really want to sit down and have a real conversation. So, having said all that, what's the best way for them to reach out to you, Joe?
They can reach out to me. Should I give the website or the phone
Whatever you
number?
got. I got globalmailboxmoney.com scrolling.
So Global Mailbox Money, we might have to jump on another show and dive in and dig into that a little bit deeper, because that's a whole another animal. I've enjoyed talking to you, but they can go to joeferrer.biz and find me there online, or you can Google me and Joe Ferrer, and they'll be able to get in touch with me. And we're here. I'm here to be able to help to service anyone that needs help in the financial world, but also from the giving standpoint at what we do at Mailbox Money as well. There's a ton of information online at globalmailboxmoney.com about what we're doing from a giving standpoint at this point in time.
You're a joy, man. Thank you. I think It's so important to have positive. I'm licensed. I don't I gave up anything that had to do with FINRA.
Hey,
So I have
those guys on your back.
I don't like OBA, my friend.
Yeah, you know what? Hey,
I hate filling out that form every year.
Yeah.
But I understand how the importance of what you do. And as more people have kind of experienced 2020, I think that they are looking for that connection to people who are financial advisors, planners that can actually help them, because a lot of people are trying to figure out their way. And it's not just the monetary way, it's in general, just trying to figure it all out. All right. So joeferrer.biz or globalmailboxmoney.com, or I've tagged Joe. You can reach out to me. You can reach out to him on social media. Just reach out. If you have questions, he's obviously exactly like this when he's talking to you, which is a plus and a positive, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're awesome. Joe Ferrer. All right, guys, reach out. You're looking for somebody to help you. And whatever that looks like, at least start with Joe. Now, he's not a counselor by trade, but we're going to talk about advisor. No, I actually did that once, and I introduced somebody. I said, reach out to Joe. He'll help you. And that person got like 3 or 4 phone calls of people who needed help.
No. I've got kids, and I deal with enough counseling here. So
you're awesome. All right, Joe Ferrer, thank you so much for being on the show. You're amazing. Reach out to him, guys. You've got that little bit of money. Maybe you got furloughed and you've got that money. You want to figure out what you want to do with it and how you're going to retire to something, which is a lovely nugget that I got from this. So thank you for that.
There you go. All right, great.
All right. Joe Ferrer, guys. We'll talk to you soon, everybody.